Welcome to On Record. Hello, friends and viewers. Welcome to On Record. Today we have Ms. TeestaSetalvad with us. Welcome to our show, ma'am. Recently, we have seen the news that Eknath Shinde is demanding the abolition of neet. So, obviously, it is for a political motive that we all know. But pushing the neet agenda is somewhat useful also for the people. How do you see the
Absolutely. Because given the fact that DMK and Tamil Nadu have taken a stand against it from the very beginning, even the NEP, the National Education Policy, which many states have rejected. I think Tamil Nadu has rejected, Kerala has rejected, and so has Karnataka. It's very important that wherever there's subjects on the concurrent list, wherever there are opposition governments, and education is on the concurrent list, these issues should be resisted, because NET and the manner in which the examinations are conducted and the evaluations held is nothing short of scandalous, nothing short of this thing, and there is no accountability. And we are seeing young people actually express their outrage. And I was happy to see that while the swearing in was on yesterday, the NSU actually conducted a 3,000-4,000 strong demonstration in Delhi yesterday. Now, this is how the opposition needs to do it, that regardless of what is going on, they have to be on the streets.
So, what is the situation of Maharashtra politics now, ma'am? Because there were a lot of factions created in Maharashtra to demoralize the parties. Shiv Sena was fractured, NCP was split into two. And even after all these, the India Alliance won so many seats against the BJP-led coalition government is running. How do you see the results, ma'am, and how it is going to be reflected in the upcoming state elections of Maharashtra?
You know, for those of us who consider ourselves true blood Maharashtrians, and I do, because that is where we've been my family and I have lived for the last 150 years. This is a very important state, and it's in that sense a kind of a bridge between South and North. It has a very strong social justice tradition.
Yes.
Very, very strong radical social justice tradition. Of course, we have Jyotiba Phule, Savitribai Phule, Baba Saheb Ambedkar, and but we have Shivaji Maharaj, we have Tukaram, we have Eknath, we've got a whole host of bhakti saints, quote unquote, who through their poetry in the Marathi language, they rejected Sanskrit. They actually challenged caste hierarchy in the most seminal way. So whether it was Chokha Mela or it was Soirabi, his wife, Chokha Mela is cited by Baba Saheb Ambedkar in his collected works. When he writes on the Untouchables, the book is dedicated to three people, and two of them are poet saints from Maharashtra. The other one is Ravidas. So this understanding of history it has been there in Maharashtra, that the history cannot be Brahmanical, it cannot be caste privilege, and it cannot be class privilege. When we talk about the kind of movement that needs to be born now, it has to be a movement that also kind of keeps looking at history, because it is this history and identities that are being manipulated by the RSS and BJP. So what Maharashtra saw in the last 3.5 years, ever since 2022 June, when this government of Uddhav Thackeray ji and Congress Sena was shamelessly toppled by the Fadnavis-Shinde duo. We know the role of the Delhi and the Home Minister in that. We know the kind of money that was spent. We know the 50 crores that was allegedly given, etc. It was a completely unholy way of doing it, unprincipled way of doing it. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court held it to be unprincipled, but did not offer an immediate remedy. So that the the original symbol went to the Eknath Shinde government. Original Pawar's NCP symbol went to Ajit Pawar. So these two battered parties were strong forces in Maharashtra. Fought the election on new symbols. They had to communicate the symbols also to the voters. But for any of us who were observing as journalists or social scientists in Maharashtra, there was an overwhelming, it was not just sympathy. It was, of course, there was sympathy, but there was also allegiance, because we had observed Uddhav Thackeray ji in power from October 2019 to June 2022. And 18-20 months of that was during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, he gave us excellent governance, very empathetic governance. People did not feel alienated from the government. A place like Dharavi was beautifully managed. Minorities felt secure. And this is despite the historical bitterness after 92-93, that the violence we saw between the Shiv Sena and the minority. All of that was repaired in a way by his chief ministership. And there was one particular incident which was very important, where a group of social reformers among the Muslims in Pune and Western Maharashtra gave the mosque for COVID wards during COVID. And the moment they did it, Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, as chief minister, made a statement that we are grateful to the Muslims in Maharashtra for giving us these spaces. That video went viral. And that created a sense of security among the Muslim community that this man will not let us down. Now, we saw that play itself out here. Congress is done the best in Maharashtra. We feel happy about it because it has regained its seats in northern Maharashtra, Vidarbha, etc. But the Congress with the Shiv Sena and the NCP has proved to be a very viable social and political alliance. And for me, who has worked on anti-communalism, I think it has the potential of healing bitternesses between communities. Because when we attended meetings for Shiv Sena candidates in my city of Mumbai, we actually saw Muslim women, Muslim youngsters sitting with Maharashtrian youngsters and Maharashtrian women and having a conversation, which unfortunately in our ghettoized lives, people don't do. So I think there's a lot to be built upon. And I think there's a lot of work for people like us to do. And hopefully the parties that have actually garnered these votes will also build these bridges between communities.
Okay. I think that's a very important development from Maharashtra and from the part of Uddhav Thackeray also, because his father may be a violent man or a man who creates violence, but his grandfather, Prabodhankar Thackeray, who was a contemporary of Periyar here, he also worked for social movements. So, do Uddhav and his followers associate themselves with Prabodhankar Thackeray? Are they really working hard? Or the chairperson Uddhav is only speaking about this?
No, actually, one of the concerns among people was after 2022 that will the cadres accept this transformation of Uddhavji? But he has openly been saying, whether he addresses meetings or in private conversation, even in public meetings, that he believes in the Hindutva of his grandfather, Prabodhan Thackeray. Now, Prabodhan Thackeray ji, as you know, was a contemporary of Periyar ji, but he was also very anti-Brahmanical and sharply so. His entire rendering of Shivaji Maharaj, who is very dear to us as a symbol in Maharashtra, because he was a small holding king, it's not a riyasaton ka raja, a king of small holdings. His challenge to Aurangzeb was not at all communal. It was not at all prejudice. It was because the taxation by the later Mughal period was exploitative. So he wrote with great respect that please reduce your taxes, wrote again. When it did not happen, he broke away. And his entire governance was compassionate and based on social justice. He had Muslims in his as his prime minister, in his army, and he issued very strict instructions against the violation of women after war, because there was a practice in those times that whenever you conquered territories, women of the opposite side would be quote unquote, there would be gender violence against them by the rulers and the ruling armies. He was extremely strict about it, and there were so many examples, including the daughter-in-law of Kalyan Subedar, who happened to be a Muslim. She was apparently brought to him in his court, and she was a very beautiful woman. And his response was, I wish my mother had been so beautiful. So through that, he gave us very stern warning to his army and his soldiers that no woman is going to feel insecure because her territory or her, we have captured that. And that earned him a lot of respect among all castes and communities. And it's part of folklore in Maharashtra. The povadas, which are sung in Marathi, actually sing about all this. So people don't know this side of Shivaji because he's been appropriated as a hardline Hindutva, that which is not true. Even S.A. Dange, the famous trade unionist, gave a speech to Calico Mills in 1951 saying, Tyanche Shivaji, Amche Shivaji. Saying that their Shivaji is different, our Shivaji is something quite different. So I think Uddhavji has been stressing this in all his meetings. He refers to Bilkis Bano case in his public meetings. Now, what better assurance can you and I have than that? That when he picks out the completely unprincipled governance of the BJP and Modi governments, he points out how were they released? How can you release people who are convicted for mass murder? And multiple mass rape and murder. Sorry, one murder, the rest is multiple rape. So there seems to be a sense of trust that he has earned. And his reactions after the results have been the same. They will fight whichever seats they felt there were unfair elections. And I'm sure as the state elections come towards the end of this year in October, we will see the reinstation of an MVA government.
Okay. So, at one side, Maharashtra, Uddhav Thackeray's positive transformation is getting him a lot of response and votes there. On another side, in Bihar, Nitish Kumar's transformation, even after multiple Baltis, he is now the single largest party there, and he got to get votes there, and the BJP with his support, and BJP eating his support gradually and growing there. How do you see the results of Bihar, ma'am?
Actually, Bihar results is something one really needs to study very, very closely because, like you rightly said, that obviously Nitish Kumar retains a lot of his hold among some voters. I don't think the BJP would have done very well without Nitish, which is why I think they probably engineered that entire scenario again. But after, the buck has to stop with him because he has actually took that step. And I think in some sense we need to compare this with maybe Andhra Pradesh. I'm not sure because in Chandrababu has obviously swept Andhra. But we've also seen a huge indent by the BJP there in Andhra Pradesh. And like you yourself said that wherever the BJP puts a step in, whether it's in Odisha or anywhere else, they tend to eat into then their allies' votes, the local votes. And that is because of the kind of vicarious ideology and the formidable organization of the RSS. So I think these parties need to be very careful because that plank can be very dangerous. And then we could see something else happening in Andhra Pradesh and Odisha later. Bihar is something we really need to examine carefully because the India alliance has not done as well as it should or was expected to. Though I must say there were doubts amongst activists working on the ground that certain factors, which we need not go into here, may limit their seats to the single digit. But I think there's a lesson to be learned. And I think one of the lessons that Bihar can learn and the forces in Bihar can learn is not just from Maharashtra, but from Bengal. Because Bengal, and we can't not refer to Bengal because despite all the skepticism and everything, the fact that Mamata Banerjee manages to increase her support among the women voter by a substantial 7 to 11% means that something she is doing is right. I mean, there might be many issues with many aspects of governance in many states, not just in Bengal. But I don't think we should single TMC out for that. I think we need to look at the fact that here is a woman leader who is very, very comfortable with other women leaders also in Parliament and in the Rajya Sabha. She's giving seats to them. She's giving them representation. And she has actually contained the mal-propaganda of the BJP on the CA issue. And I think the citizenship amendment issue, where the BJP tried to get the Matua and the Namoshudra vote, which is the Dalit vote, has not happened in Bengal.
Okay. So, after all these, the BJP is going to form the government. Yesterday, the cabinet minister sworn in, but the portfolios are not yet announced. The composition of the cabinet, how do you see the composition, ma'am? Because the BJP is claiming that we have gave 27% to OBCs. So we are the real patrons of reservation, and they are saying so. How do you see the composition of the cabinet and the NDA government is formed?
Well, we should look at the size and the composition, because the size of every successful Modi cabinet has grown. And they say it's a sign of a weak government when you have such a large cabinet. But anyway, that's a different issue. I think in this election, let's go back to the issues that were thrown up in this election. One of the core issues that was thrown up was the issue of what does being a representative of OBC mean? Does it mean conveniently saying I'm an OBC whenever I want to have that appeal, or does it also mean let's maybe have a caste census? Explain to all sections of Indians what is a caste census, why policy decisions need to be guided by who is more privileged or who is not privileged. So I think all this will be a test for the government and the opposition. That because the BJP has been very, very good by giving token representation. We have our first Adivasi president. We had our first Dalit president with the BJP. So there is no issue with tokenism. They are very good at it. And the opposition has also failed at that. We have to admit that, even in terms of optics. But it is the real test of, I think, democratic citizenship. When the sections you say you are patronizing, you're not patronizing, but you're giving them their rights. The relationship of BJP with various subaltern sections is one of upper caste patronage. What they need to do is give them rights. Are they comfortable with an Ambedkarite Dalit? Are they comfortable with a Rohit Vemula? Are they comfortable with a OBC leader who looks them in the eye and says, where is justice for my caste or community? Are they comfortable with a woman who says that your ideology stands against women? See, it's not about just giving tokenisms. As a party that represents the diversity and plurality of India, the party in power needs to give equal rights and equal justice to every section of Indians, particularly the most disempowered. I don't think the BJP can ever claim to be doing that. They are good at propaganda. They are good at co-option. They are good at extreme manipulation of ideology, even misusing of funds. And let's just see what they did with the Labharthi scheme. I mean, that is something we need to talk about, because I found it so demeaning. It is so demeaning that in the same month that you build up the propaganda around the Ram temple in January, the Prime Minister goes on a publicity blitzkrieg saying that I am. I mean, the arrogance of a person who is sitting in a democratic position, enjoying that position because of the votes of people. His entire sense of power comes from the sovereignty of the Indian people. And he said, I am the one who's doling out this 5 kilos of ration to you. And it's 80 crore Indians who are getting it. I just feel that's a very offensive conversation. I think it's about time we speak about what are the kind of resources that are allocated to which section of the Indian people. Do we have enough budgetary allocations for the youth? Do we have enough educational allocations for public education, not private education? Do we want to have a common school system or not? Which is the largest good of the largest number? And that debate has to be happen on a social justice rights platform. It cannot be happen on a patronizing platform. Okay. And BJP and RSS are very good at patronizing these sections that are deprived by giving them the vision that we are including you into a Sanskritized vision, which is also not true, unfortunately.
One last question about the results, ma'am. In Gujarat, the Congress won only one seat. That's also Banskanda. But that is the constituency where Modi spoke that Congress will snatch you of buffaloes. Congress will snatch you of your wealth. And at that place, the Congress won. And Banswara of Rajasthan, at that constituency, the Bharat Adivasi Party won. And at that place, Modi said that Congress is going to snatch away even your Mangal Shudra. And last to mention, they have lost the constituency, which includes Ayodhya Ram Temple, with a margin of 50,000 plus votes. So these three, can we take these three as indicators that people are not completely saffronized yet in India?
Absolutely, but I'll add one rider to it, that people do not respond to rabid communal remarks all the time. I will put it like that.
Mm.
Okay, all the time.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
First, Gujarat. I think the results, closer look at the results in Gujarat will also tell us that in at least 4 other seats, and Patan is at the top of it, the
Mm.
narrow margin has been very narrowed down, and uh, something has happened. You had a lackluster opposition campaign there. You had lots of other movements by civil society and others. But I think
Mm.
the Indian National Congress will have to ask itself questions about renewing its organization, particularly in some states and areas. But the fact is, whether it is Gujarat or Uttar Pradesh, the fact is that hate speech, Rajasthan, hate speech did not work. Even in my state of Maharashtra, the Prime Minister came repeatedly because he knew Maharashtra was a key state like Tamil Nadu and kept making very objectionable speeches. In all these areas, he has lost. The party has lost.
Mm. Mm.
And I'll send you a link we've done in Sabrang where we share that how hate speeches did not really work for the BJP
Okay.
this time, which is great. However, I feel that the potential of this to resurface is also very great because every time, because this time in 2024, we saw a cogent opposition. India
Mm.
saw a viable opposition. So I think people were able to overcome their other issues and identities and vote for the India coalition. That objective scenario needs to remain. The
Mm.
opposition has a huge responsibility on itself because it
Mm.
has revived hopes. It has fought against odds. Though it was not a level playing field, it has to keep that same energy and involvement with the people alive, and in areas where it has a weaker organization to build on it. So I think that's one. Secondly, I think we all need to keep talking about the election results. We
Mm.
should not stop talking in a week or two. We should
Mm.
analyze them micro, macro, talk to community leaders, talk to others, find out what happened which was positive and what happens
Mm.
when more work needs to be done. Particularly the civil society organizations and mass organizations and people's organizations who got involved this time. We are determined that we are not going to stop. We are going to keep this constant self examination plus the pressure on the government through programs, actions, state level actions, etc., which might even be thematic. It could be education, it could be Adivasi. I mean, let's not have this conversation without talking about the farmers' issue. The
Mm.
farmers have played a huge role in this result. Now,
Mm.
people, the movement started in 2020. They sacrificed over 750 lives, were martyred, yet they did not give up. Now, the first
Mm.
editorial I see in Indian Express last 3 days is that agriculture needs to change in India under Modi. So this
Mm.
corporate nexus will push hard to revive those corporatized laws. They are not going to give up easily. Let's not forget that BJP has got Odisha and Chhattisgarh, rich in mines, rich in minerals, where there can be even more exploitation than there were by previous governments. So lots of issues we'll have to keep very alert and alive to, galvanize ourselves, keep the people's focus, and ensure that this wonderful alliance we've built of different sections of the people, from Adivasi groups to Dalit groups to urban groups to rural groups, women's groups, workers, farmers, somehow keeps their conversations between themselves going and constantly protests and raises its voice in the states and in Delhi.
And for sure, the opposition have to have a wider ears and open eyes and louder mouth and lengthy hands to work with all of us and for the people of India and to the people of India. Let's see what happens. Thank you for this conversation, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much.